Okay.
Got it.
Okay. Thanks, Pat.
Okay. You want me to go ahead and get started?
Yes, please.
Okay. Um, just as a way of introducing myself and why I'm doing this, I've been a member of the church for many years. I was born into that church. And I am a family and consumer science teacher. I've worked with culinary quite a bit. And so several years ago, I was asked to kind of organize the kitchen. And Patricia and I've worked together for a couple of years now, several years. Um, and we're trying to make everybody get everybody on the same page, basically. um, the kitchen is not your personal home kitchen, and that's one of the reasons that Shirley Bramham and I developed this presentation. um, there are some things that you need to be aware of, and there's also some things that I think we can work together on to improve everything. As we're coming out of COVID, more and more people are using the kitchen. And so Patricia and I talked about it and said, well, maybe it's time to do this presentation again. We did it 3 years ago, but there's new people working in the kitchen now, new ideas and that kind of thing. And we want to respect all of that and also move ahead uh, together. Before I get started, there's a couple of reminders that I want to make. And number one, that is that there are lots of other groups using the kitchen. So one of the things that we're not doing is leaving leftovers out on the counter, leaving leftovers in the refrigerator that aren't labeled, that kind of thing, so that people can respect other people's things. There are, as I said, a lot more groups using the kitchen now, and there's going to be an increased number of groups using the kitchen. So we thought this would be a good idea. Couple of reminders, please don't move things to relocate them to another location. They've been put there for a reason. Everything's been labeled, so we're not moving things, we're not relabeling things. A couple of groups have come to me and said, well, I'm looking for X and I can't find it. And I knew that that was there a week before, and it was there, it just been relocated. And so we're trying to ask you not to relocate things and not to relabel things either. This was developed for our church, so we've got a few biblical references here. And I think this is a good one to start. Moreover, this is the gift of God, that all people should eat, drink, and enjoy the results of their hard work. The Lord took the human and settled him in the Garden of Eden to farm it and to take care of it. And we're using the fruits of those labors in many ways in the church. Okay, let's start. The Kitchen Crew's name was an acronym that we came up with. The first part of that acronym is energy. Please turn off all electrical equipment that was used except the coffee maker. Only the warmer on the coffee maker is to be turned off. Everything else is to be left on. And that's part of the nature of the beast of the coffee maker. So we're asking you to do that. Without guidance, a people will fall, but there is victory with many counselors. And we really celebrate all of you who are working in the kitchen, and we want to move forward and do it together. There is a first aid kit in the upper cabinet at the desk area, which is over by the door going out to the outside. It needs to be left there, but at the same time, if it's needing something to be put in it, please do that. Obviously, wash hands and surfaces often. Bacteria spreads through hands, through cutting boards, through utensils, through countertops, and through food. Washing the cutting boards, utensils, and countertops after using is really important. We have some colored cutting boards. What kind of a product to use on those cutting boards, please follow those. Plastic food handling gloves, rubber bands for hair, hair nets, and beer nets are in the lower cabinet on the left of the stove. So if you're facing the stove, it's on the left. This is what we're talking about when we're talking about cutting boards. Don't cross-contaminate. Use separate cutting boards for foods as color-coded. Red is for raw meat. Blue is for fish. Green is for fruits and vegetables. White is for cooked food. And the cooked food should not be placed on a plate or pan that previously had raw eggs or meat on it. And that's something that I'm sure that people will do at home and that kind of thing. But we're trying to be very careful in the kitchen, and we're following guidelines for culinary professionals. Cook food to a safe internal temperature, and we'll go over some of those temperatures in just a minute. They must reach a high heat internal temperature to kill harmful bacteria. There is a food thermometer in the kitchen. It's to the left of the stove in the upper cabinet, and we encourage you to use that. These are suggested temperatures for safe cooked food. Roast beef, steaks, 145 degrees, poultry, 165, ground meat, 160, fish, 145, eggs, and that includes yolks and whites, must be firm, not runny. Sauces, soups, and gravies, boil when they're reheating them, and then you can turn it down. Leftovers, 165, and microwave cooking needs to be covered, stirred, and rotated. If you don't cover in the microwave, it spatters everywhere, and that's going to create more work to clean it up. Refrigerating promptly is a very wise decision. Raw meat, poultry, eggs, cooked food, cut fresh fruits and vegetables should be refrigerated within 2 hours. 1 hour in hot weather. We don't have to worry about that right now, but it is coming. Do not defrost food at room temperature, but leave it in the refrigerator. Marinate food in the refrigerator. Divide large amounts of leftovers into shallow containers for quicker cooling in the refrigerator. I walked in one time and somebody had put a very large, and I mean a very large, container of hot tea in the refrigerator to make iced tea. Theory says that's a good idea, except that a large container like that with food in it is going to minimize the cooling effect. It's going to compromise the refrigerator. So if you break it into smaller containers, it will refrigerate faster. Aprons are in the lower cupboard area and the desk area. Dirty aprons need to be left on the rack in the pass-through on the service counter. They will be washed, but if they're put back in the cupboard, we don't know they're dirty. Dirty dishes, silverware, and cups need to be washed and returned to the proper place. If arrangements for a dishwasher have been made, that means a person washing the dishes. Leave dirty dishes in the large dishwashing area. Please don't leave dishes on the counters or in dish drainers and that kind of thing for somebody else to put away. It's better just to get it done and be done with what you're doing in the kitchen. Wipe down all counters, sinks, and the stove. Cleaning supplies are in the dishwashing area under the sinks. The stovetop lid, and some people may not know this, can be lifted to remove food residue from underneath, and that should be done regularly. More kitchen cleanup. Use the white towels. Dirty towels should be white towels with the stripes left in the custodial closet. White towels with no stripes can be left in the rack on the pass-through and the service counter. Run hot water down the drain after cleanup for 2 minutes, and this just helps clear the drain. Clear the disposals of all waste. Please don't overload the disposals either. It's real important. I've had several plumbers tell me do not use disposals at all. We're not going to go that far, but at the same time, use them wisely and clear them all waste when you're cleaning up. There are several trash containers in the kitchen. Recycled items go in the blue can. Items that cannot be recycled go in the trash can. Do not allow the trash can to overflow. A custodian, if they're there, can empty the trash for you if you're busy with other tasks, but the trash cans should be kept at a minimum too. We're going to ask you to notify the church office of cleaning products, supplies that need to be replenished, and notify the church office of equipment not working properly. We have had in the past a checklist for people who are using the kitchen to go through, and we're going to put that back. It will be located in the top drawer underneath the telephone. And anybody who is in charge of using the kitchen for the day should complete that. It just helps us in keeping the kitchen replenished because there's quite a bit of things that are used by many groups. And if you use the last of something the next person coming in doesn't have anything of that item. So be sure that you let the church office know what's not working properly and what cleaning products and supplies need to be replenished. A time for keeping and a time for throwing away. We recently went through the kitchen, had a deep clean of the kitchen, which is quite costly, but very necessary. We cleaned out a lot of extra things. I can't tell you how many pictures we had, but if you were at church, you saw an entire table full of all kinds of pictures. We have 3 sets of pictures now. We have multiple pictures in each set, so we should have plenty of pictures. And it's that kind of thing that starts to build up and multiply. And that takes the place of room that we need for other things. Leftover food should not be combined with existing leftovers. In other words, you've got leftovers in the refrigerator, you've got some leftovers that are the same thing, don't put them together. Hot food and cold food doesn't go together. Okay, separate them, label them, and put them in the refrigerator. Please label food with the date that you're putting it in there and your group's name, if the group will be using it later. There are labels and pens in the cupboard above the telephone. Food not labeled with your group's name is available for anyone. Discard all food that's not wanted. Don't think, oh, somebody might want this, I'll leave it in the refrigerator. Discard it if your group cannot be using it anymore. Check expiration dates on foods. Discard if they're outdated, or if the seal is popped or a can is dented. I know that there's lots of food donated, but those are the things that you really need to be very careful of with food safety. We're feeding a lot of people that we don't know, and we don't know food problems, we don't know health problems, et cetera, et cetera. We don't want to add to those problems by giving them outdated or spoiled food. So that's why we're asking you to do that. Dry goods can be labeled with the group name, the date, and identify what the food is. It's kind of hard to tell sometimes. There are labels and pens in the cupboard above the desk area. Seal it in plastic bags, and the bags are located in the cupboard near the trash cans. I know that there's other things in those too, but the cupboard has been labeled both inside and out of where those bags and other paper products should go. So please respect that and find the bags there. Basically, there is a checklist, as I said, and when work is complete, you're going to fill out the checklist. Now, this is not Mary Meister anymore. You can leave it in the kitchen or the office area. Jim Mishler is down there quite often, and he is in charge of the facility. So you can put Jim's name on it if you'd like. If I need to see it, I'm sure he'll get it to me. That's not a problem. But the checklist should be turned into Jim also. Thank you. And that's it. Does anybody have any questions?
Should we keep recording the questions, you think, or just?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
All right, good. Well, I have a question. You are going to create a new checklist?
Yes, it's underway. It's going to be run off and it'll be in the kitchen this week.
Okay. And the first aid kit, who supplies, and we notify the same person, Jim? Is that okay?
By Jim.
Yeah.
He's working with trustees, so he's working with replacements that need to be made, with repairs that need to be made, and if he'll contact me if I need to be contacted too. Not a problem.
And then the last I have, and then it can go to somebody else. The towels, you say the stripes versus the others? I didn't know there was any difference.
I'm going to double check that this week, and I'll let you know.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Okay, Pat, I got a question on the expiration date. If it says best used by, do we still have to get rid of it?
To be totally safe, I would say yes.
However, there was just a special on NPR.
Yeah.
Fairly long line says you don't have to get rid of it. There's no reason to get rid of it.
No, but you know, some of the things we found in there said best used by 2015.
Yeah, well, I can understand that.
There's a reasonable answer. Yeah,
yeah,
there's a reasonable thing.
Yeah.
So if it's within a couple months, I would say it would be fine. If it says best used by, but if it says do not use after, that's a different thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else?
I had one more question about compost, because it appears that there's a small trash can for compost, but I have never by the dumpster. I have never seen it with any sort of space that we could use. And I've
Mhm.
also seen it completely contaminated. So at this point, one of us is taking it home to our own yard waste.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you. That's great.
Continue. Okay. All right.
Any other questions I can answer this morning?
I have
know.
one more question.
Go ahead.
Who is, when you say other people are using the kitchen, who's allowed to use other, I don't know, I guess I have a question about who's really using and storing food in the kitchen. I understand if people are coming in for a one-off event and maybe wanting a couple shelves, but
Yeah, and most of it's that, although Jan Beal is in charge of the Sunday snacks, and she uses the kitchen every Sunday. What used to be called UMW, United Methodist Women, is now United Women, oh, I'm sorry, UWF. And they meet the first Thursday of every month. And so they will be using the kitchen. Now, let me tell you this too. There are groups in the church that don't regularly meet there, but sometimes they do. Things like Moms. Moms meets the first Tuesday of every month, unless we're meeting on a Saturday, which sometimes happens. But sometimes we use the church kitchen. There are receptions. We have a memorial service coming up in 2 weeks, and I will need refrigerator space for that. I'm going to be coordinating that. I usually coordinate the receptions at the church. So there are other groups coming in here and there using them. There are groups that are using it regularly, and there's going to be more and more of that now that we're using the church more. I was told that rooms can now be used by groups. They're not solely for one group and that's it. And that's going to encourage more groups to be meeting at the church. I think some of the Zoom that has been happening is going to stop happening. And there's going to be more people using the church too. Again, they're going to use the church kitchen. And so we need to be mindful of that. We need to have some freezer space all the time. We need to have some refrigerator space all the time. And that means please don't fill it all up. We have 2 freezers. And a month or so ago when I was down there, somebody wanted to put some ice in some water just to serve ice water. And there was no ice. There was no room for ice. So we're going to be working, Patricia and I are going to be working on making sure that there is room for other groups to use that too. I realized that the community meals program went on during COVID and you were the only ones using the kitchen. That's changed. So that's one of the reasons we're doing this, and we're trying to be respectful of everyone. Anybody else? Hi, Julie.
Hi. What did you say about the checklist? Did you say that it has to be done every single time we use the kitchen, or?
Yes. Yeah. And I'll tell you why. You may come in and you're in charge of a meal, whatever, and you use the last of the, let's say, foil. There's no more foil. And then if you don't write that on the checklist, then somebody else comes in expecting to have it there, because that's one of the things that we restock for everybody, and it's not there.
Okay.
And so that's why. Or if a disposal freezes and doesn't work, again, we don't want the next person coming in and having to deal with that. So that's why.
Makes sense.
I know it sounds like a lot, but it's the
No, I
best
just
way
want to be, yeah, I just want to make sure I heard that right.
and
Okay.
that will be in the kitchens this week.
anyone else? Well, thanks, Pat, for
You're welcome.
taking the time. I will send you the recording and share with everyone else.
Okay, great. Thank you. And I'm down there most often on Sundays. I can come down during the week. I only live 4 miles from the church, so it's not a big deal. Let me give you my phone number. I'm going to give you my cell phone just in case you have some questions. And my cell phone is 916-955-6400. And if I don't answer, it's because I've got a grandchild with me, or it's because I'm observing a student teacher, and I will call you back, I promise. Leave me a message.
And maybe we can put your number up in the cabinet. And also if somebody doesn't have it, I have it. So you can.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks very
Okay.
much.
Bye-bye.